Welcome to Module 7. This week, let me just go down here. I'm on the course website here. I'll just go down to the bottom here. It says Business Analytics, and what we'll be doing is several exercises. One off is a product review, so you get an example of what is expected for you to do for analysis for your business report. So down here is like business report. How do you format your report? What's expected for the assignment? Right. So let's go into Module 7. Module 7 has the lecture material. Don't forget to have a look at that. I'll be covering that in a few seconds. The next part, which is the workshop material, you'll actually find that there's a whole bunch of files here. What we want you to do is download all these guys because we'll be using them progressively through this next video. I'll just skip back very quickly. Don't forget to do the weekly test your knowledge in class, right? It's very important for you to sort of try and keep up with what's actually happening within the course there, right? So we're into the workshop material. Download those, and I'll be starting those in the next session. All right, so here we are with our PDF open. This PDF here contains all the activity exercises for this module. There are basically two or three in this one. I'm not quite sure, but the order which they're asking us to follow is to open up the Excel spreadsheet, which is provided to you, which you should have downloaded already, and a product review form which associates to the spreadsheet. So to do some analysis, which is over here, they're saying that the customer what they don't want is overaccumulated stock, and they're thinking of deleting like two products from their range, right? So they're already giving you some kind of idea of what should be analysed in a way, but you should stretch past that, right? But the order for my presentation here will be slightly different. I'm going to change it a bit. Because the usual question is why am I doing this product analysis and product review for, right? So what I'll do is I'll try to explain to you what is involved in actually writing a business report, especially for this subject. What are the key components and, of the structure, and what are you actually going to fill in the report from doing this analysis. So we'll do the business report. What is the business report? What's the structure? What's actually required within this report in a general term? Then we'll actually do some analysis of data, and I'll show you how to use this product review form, which you should have downloaded, and actually link what these sections within this analysis table actually imply within a business report by using the spreadsheet data which is supplied to us. But first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to actually clean this sort of stuff up afterwards. We don't want this yellow colour to burn the retinas off your eyes. So we'll do a bit of cleanup before we actually get into the exercise for the analysis, right? But the first point of call is activity not 2, but on activity 2 here. But what we're going to do is I'm going to explain to you what is a business report, what's the structure and so forth that you expect to have for your business assignment. The last part will actually be formatting a business report. So there's a document which you should have already downloaded, the unformatted one, and we'll actually go through and actually format to the requirements that you should expect within the business report assignment. Not to mention though, you have to read the business assignment specs because there will be additional information in there that you have to cover. So let's start the presentation of what is required in your business report for ISYS 2056 assignment, the report writing. So be aware that this is the lecture. It's almost the same as the lecture, but I'll cover a little bit more. Just give a little bit more detail to you, which is required for this business report. So what are we actually looking for? We're looking for a business report that's not an academic report, so it's not full of references and so forth and complex wording. You try and make sure that your report's, simple wording, to the point, We don't want the massive amount of blurbs where it just confuses everything, right? You try to be concise as you can. Don't over blurt it and put information in that we're really not looking for or that we already know about, right? Okay. So the general structure of the report is, well, a lot of other documents as well. It doesn't just have to be necessarily this report, but you'll have a title page, which is required by the assignment. The table of contents, and I'll stress this again, table of contents, it's not a table of contents where you write and put spaces in and dots and so forth. It's an automatically generated table of contents from Microsoft Word, and we'll do that in the exercise in the following videos. An introduction, which is a straight to the point introduction, no blurb about the history of the world and all that sort of stuff. We want to get to the point of what you are analysing, and list the questions that have to be answered by the conclusion, right? Okay, so any of the items which are introduced in the introduction, saying, oh, okay, what this report, let's just as a quick example, what this report's going to do is, well, we're intending to analyse, sales data for the last quarter, right? In the conclusion, you should have the same. The sales data for the last quarter was 20 million, 30% increase from previous year. So the introduction poses the question. We are going to be looking at sales data. Conclusion says the answer to the question. The sales data was blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay. So in other words, your conclusion must be much, much bigger than your introduction. Right? The analysis and discussion portion of the document, do not use these as headings. Right? You should use your own headings. These are just general headings to highlight this is the body of the report, right? The analysis and so forth. I've already explained what conclusion is. They've said conclusions. You can also say conclusion, your conclusion. It doesn't really mean that you have to have 15 million conclusions. And obviously the last part is, on basis of everything that you've done here, all the analysis, what are your recommendations? For this assignment, they've listed up here saying, appendices. Appendices, usually what you'll see is things like tables, graphs, and so forth. In this assignment, take my advice, don't do anything with appendices. Make sure that all of your content, your charts, the tables, whatever you're going to put in, is in the content. It's only about 800 or 1,000 words. It's not 2,000 pages of document, which means put it in the context up here. And there is absolutely no need for such a short report to have an appendix. If I see an appendix, I'd be quite surprised. Right? All right, so what's the first part of this assignment? It says title page. They've changed it here to the cover page, which is basically the same thing. It's the title page of your report, and it should contain, or actually in the assignment, I'm pretty sure they've probably made it mandatory, insert a picture up the top. So it's only text here, but you would actually expect a picture, an appropriate sort of picture to what the report is. So there should be a title. Obviously put the course details, ISYS 2056, etc. in here. The student name and number, right? And the tutors' names. Ideally put both the tutors, and most important of all is your student number, and the last part is the date and time, right, on the cover. And if you actually have a look, the cover page does not have a title. It does not, header, sorry, and it does not have a footer. Right? So there's no page numbering and all this sort of stuff. It's just a blank page, basically, with some text and a picture on it. Table of contents, like I said previously, must be auto-generated. And we'll show you how to do that in Microsoft Word in the following exercise, or the unformatted exercise for this module. But the table of contents should be on a separate page, and what's missing here, usually what you'll see is a page numbering here, which is Roman numeral page numbering. And then the rest of the body or the content of the report will have standard old 1, 2, 3, 10, blah, blah, blah. Do not copy this format. These are just recommended titles for, it's a recommended heading here for item 2, but you should have an introduction, conclusion and recommendation, and personally ignore the appendices. You do not need appendices in here. All right, and for your assignment, if the table of contents is not automatically generated, it will be seen and you'll lose marks, right? So make sure that you know how to do automatic table of contents. So introduction, like I said previously, what is an introduction? Introduction means get to the point, be straight to the point, and say what is the purpose of this this report. What's the scope? The scope means what are you actually looking at within the business? Are you looking at the entire business? Are you just looking at warehousing? Are you just looking at sort of date ranges, let's say for quarterly sales? So you have to identify the scope of this report as how big or how in depth is this report going to be, and what you are really looking at is get to the point of what are you going to actually analyse. So it doesn't mean that you provide, like it says down here, we do not want all the information in introduction that the person already knows. So if you're writing this is referring back to the you know or know your audience. If this report is going to the owner of the business, the owner will definitely not want to know about the history of how long this business has been working, who basically started the business and so forth. He doesn't want to know about himself. Okay, so irrelevant information to tell an owner, oh, this business has been running for 20 years. He already knows that. Do not put it in the introduction. The introduction should be straight to the point, saying we are going to analyse blah X, Y, Z, and then in the conclusion, X, Y, Z was this much and this percentage and so forth, right? Okay. So know your audience. Who is it? And in this case, you know you're going to be writing a report for the business owner, so he doesn't want to know the history of the world behind his business, right? Structure a report. It really not really necessary. You do not have to say, oh, okay, this report will have a body analysis and it will have a conclusion. It's absolutely not required. The structure is reported to you in the table of contents. So the person, as soon as they open up the report, they will see the table of contents. That is the structure of the report. We don't really need to know anything else about that. Make sure that the paragraph is right to the point. Do not make it 3-4 paragraphs. For this case, you've only got 800 or 1,000 words. Make sure it's only about a paragraph long, right? So just get to the point. All right. Oh, sorry. Yes, that's it. Now, one other thing about the introduction. Do not put conclusive or conclusions like summarising what we've already found and you know the major effect of this business was blah. Do not put conclusions into or summary stuff into what you found into the introduction. Introduction is basically posting the questions that you will answer through your analysis, right? Okay, and no need, absolutely no need to mention in the introduction saying, oh yes, I will be doing business analytics using descriptive, predictive, and so no need, absolutely no need. And the other thing is, please do not put into your introduction saying I will use Excel. Absolutely no need to tell us what tools you're using and what sort of analytics and so forth, right? All right. So what are the different forms of business analytics that you will have to do on the data, or actually perform analytics on the data? And we know now, and you'll be harped to death, the 3 different types, which is the descriptive analytics. And remember, for the exam, you must know descriptive analytics is describing the current performance of a business using past and current data. So you have to know how to explain what is descriptive analytics, and it would be things like total sales. An agent sold this much last quarter. So you're describing what actually happened in the business. So descriptive analytics means describing current state, right? Okay. You'll be doing these, all three of these, within the analytics to answer the report, and basically all three of them are the structure and the content of the report. So predictive analytics means looking at current and past data to predict into the future what will happen within this business. So through your analytics, you should see things like trends, patterns, right? So when you see these patterns, you can start, you can start forecasting, which means predictive analytics. Oh, I see that orange cars always sell really well on Mondays. So Mondays, I can actually say, oh, there's a pattern. Orange cars always on Mondays. Expect on Mondays, orange cars will be selling much better than other colours, right? So predictive analytics. And the last one, which is probably the most important within the report, is if you've done your descriptive, current state analytics, and you've done your predictive, so you've actually understood that there are some patterns and so forth, the trends within the data, then you can start predicting stuff in terms of saying, this is what you should do. So you prescribe, or you actually do, you begin to do prescriptive analytics, which means varying the inputs within your model to maximize outputs. Right? That's the definition of prescriptive. Varying the inputs to maximize the outputs within the system. So, for instance, in in your report, you will actually be saying, if we vary the input, which would be, oh, we need to increase this, we need to increase staff availability for orange cars on Mondays, varying the input, we will maximise the output by increasing the revenue. Right? So your prescriptive analytics means that you are recommending actions to be taken within the organisation to maximise our basically maximise our turnover and our revenue. So it's very important that you understand all three of these must be covered within the business report. Majority of students only do the descriptive and some do predictive, so they say, oh, I wonder why I only got 10 out of 20, right? Because you've only covered half of the report. You must cover all three to be able to get that 80 to 100% for the report, right? So all three must be covered within the report. Okay, let's have a look at the analysis then. So in the analysis section, this is where you will be using the spreadsheet as your data to look at descriptive analytics. So descriptive analytics will be looking at the current performance. So with current performance, you'll be looking at total sales, how much was sold by someone, agent performance, product performance, date range performance, just to say this is what the current performance of the system entails. So you'll have to interpret in your own words what the descriptive analytics part was within your report. So that's basically the first section within your report. The next section, and don't mix them up, split them, is the predictive part. So in the predictive part, while you're doing the analysis to say, oh yes, we're looking at the agents and we're looking at this, you should be looking to see whether you can see some sort of patterns, whether you can see some sort of trends. Is there some anomaly which happens on a seasonal basis or so, right? So you should see these trends or patterns to be able to fill in the second part of your analysis, which is the predictive analytics, right? So you'll put that into your report. So you're looking for the current data. Oh, I see some patterns. You fill in the predictive portion. Once you've completed all that, you'll go into conclusions and so forth. But here is an example of, and personally, I'd actually say right off the bat, something that you don't do in a report, right? So this is actually a bad example, but here, do not do this, and I'll just list them off for you. First off, we're not interested. If you're the CEO of a company and someone gives you a report with an axis and still got cents on it, really not interested, because he'll only be looking here and look 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. You can change this to 6M, right? 5M, 4M. Not interested if you're looking at millions. Oh, sorry, it's 2 cents. Not interested, right? So make sure that your axes actually are appropriate for your audience. So if there's such a large gap between these, round them off, right? Actually, 6,000 K, right? It doesn't matter, but round these things off. This is not a good graph to present to a CEO. Other question here is, if you have a look at the bars and so forth, depends on if you're, it is appropriate to have it in this fashion. If you're sorting by names, like you're putting New South Wales together, Queensland together, Victoria together, that's fine to have this. But usually what we really like to see is maximum to minimum sort of sorting for bars. So we can actually immediately see, oh yeah, that's the maximum guy, and we can immediately see which of these guys are performing better than each other. Right? As it's presented here, I couldn't tell you from the figures here whether they are, they're not, and so forth, because they're very, very close. Right? Okay, for targets and so forth. So anyway, like between these guys, yeah, okay, you could probably still look, but it takes time. And if you're in management, top level management, you don't want to spend time trying to analyse this chart. I just want to look at it and 5 seconds later I've made my decision. Now here's the last part that I'll introduce to you, and you must put, before I do that, every chart within your report must have a figure. And it should be similar to this, or centered, or so forth. But make sure that your charts actually have a label attached to it. All right, now the last part. Don't hand in your report with the text or explanation of the chart after the chart. The charts and tables and so forth that you use within your report are evidence of what you're saying. Right? So, in other words, you must just explain what you found, and then put the chart in after the text. So the charts and labels always go after the text, not before the text. If it's done like this in before the text, the wording down here will be Kuehl, blue bar, Oliver, red bar. Right? All this text will end up doing is explaining this chart, which I can see for myself. So you should have detailed explanation here of what you found, and then whack in a chart afterwards as evidence to support what you say. So text first, chart after. Okay. Now another point here. If we read here, as seen in figure 1, blah 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 blah, right? Approximately 24%. Presently 40% total sales. 27%. Approximately 23%. It does not make any sense at all unless you attach one of these percentages or all of these percentages to a dollar figure. Right? So if I say here, his target by approximately 24%, 24% of what? Right? So actually make sure that you include dollars and don't just speak in percentages like this. Right? So you must include dollars and percentages so people can see what the differences are. You can feel what they are. Right? Last one over here, from just this analysis bit, to improve the results, blah, 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 you can immediately see that this is starting to recommend something, which means this should actually be a recommendation. It should not be part of your analysis, because the analysis is doing descriptive. You are describing the current performance. You are not trying to be prescriptive. So this paragraph here should be at the end. And if you read it, look, even just looking at it in 2 seconds, if I'm getting paid $600 an hour, I would throw this report out, because there is absolutely no dollar figure here. It's all words. So I'm not even going to waste my time reading it, because it's pointless. Immediately I would be asking, oh, so how much is better? What are the other options? And so forth. So I'd be already looking for numbers and figures. So please don't use this as a good example. This is a bad example, but hopefully rewind what I just said and make sure you include what I said, to do within your report. Hopefully you'll get the idea if you rewind the video several times. Okay, so conclusions. As I said previously, your introduction is where you introduce the items that you'll be evaluating or analysing. In the conclusion, you must list those items that you're going to attempt to look at. List them in the conclusion with the actual analysis or the findings, which means must have dollar figures and percentages that go along with it. So as I said previously, introduction. We will be looking or investigating orange car sale. In the conclusion, it must say orange car sale was 20% increase from 2019, and the increase was $2 million. Right? So immediately you've answered the introduction question. So it must have some kind of tie-in. Right. Recommendations is your prescriptive analytics. So in the analysis part of your document, you did descriptive analytics, you did predictive analytics, so you see some kind of future, some patterns and so forth, so you do some forecasting there. And the very last part is where you recommend things, so further actions. And here's the important thing about recommendations. Is if I recommend to you, say yes, we should increase the amount of increase the amount of agents or sales reps which will be pushing orange cars. Immediately you would ask, how many agents? What do you expect of this implementation to cost? Right? So, money-wise, and what is the expected return? So your recommendations can't just say put more agents on orange cars. It must be supported by evidence to say, if we put 2 extra agents, we will get a return of $100,000 in the next quarter. So that is a recommendation, not just put more agents on. It must always tie in some dollar figure and a percentage, if you need to, of how you intend to implement or how we should implement these recommendations. Okay. All right, and keep your recommendations to what you have analysed. So if you've done analytics on cars, aeroplanes, and so forth, don't come out and say increase marketing. If you have absolutely no data about marketing, what the demographics was and so forth, right, you can't comment about a recommendation. You can't provide a recommendation, say increase marketing, because you don't have that data. So only stick to recommending on what you were analysing. Okay. All right. So we now know what's needed within the business report, the structure of it, the introduction, the body, in other words, the analytics, and how we have to cover the 3 analytics, and we have to create a summary of findings, which is the conclusion, and then the recommendations, right? So the second part of the exercise for this module is to fill in a review form, right? And a product review form using the spreadsheet, which is a Pink Lady spreadsheet, the product analysis spreadsheet. Now, why do we use this product review form? The reason is, if we go over to, let me just go through, there's so many windows open, to the product review form. What I've done is I've customized this one so it actually shows you or highlights the areas which replicate back into the business assignment or the business report assignment. And you notice the first part in this table, which is the introduction, it's actually appropriately named, but the introduction, it goes into the introduction. But here what we're looking for is that you replicate what is going into the business report by itemizing what are you analysing within the spreadsheet. Right? So here you'd have a list of items that you are looking for to analyse within the spreadsheet. So in other words, in this case, what we've got is Pink Lady, and we'll be looking at this particular worksheet here and say, what are you analysing within this spreadsheet? So I've gone too far. There we go. So once we've listed the items that we want to analyse to see what the performance of this business is like, we would actually copy those items and actually paste them into our conclusion to report on what did we actually find. So you actually summarise for each item that you've looked into in the introduction to be answered down here. And previously, remember, I gave you the example of the orange cars. So you say I'll be analysing car sales in on let's say daily car sales, right? So down here in the production, on the conclusion, you would have daily car sales and then what you actually found in percentages and dollars and so forth, right? Okay, so introduction would be clear enough, straight to the point. I will be analysing X, Y, Z. Then the body of your report, which is the descriptive and predictive analytics. And the descriptive would be what was the product sale for the month, what's the total sales for the month, how many sales did we actually achieve. So it's describing the current status of the business. While we're looking at this current status, we should look for patterns, trends, so that we can make forecasts in terms of predictive analytics. So if we find in here that sales are really good every first quarter, sales seem to be really good on the first quarter and they drop off in the last, we would say in here, we have to concentrate on blah blah, because we can see a pattern that first quarter is doing really well and the others are dropping off. So predictive would show that there is a trend or a pattern, and we would mention it in this part of the report. Remember, don't confuse the two, split them. Okay, now that was your body of your report, and obviously we just explained what the conclusion was answering the questions from the introduction that we analysed for the results. Okay, now once we've actually got a really good picture of the business, which is the introduction, descriptive, predictive, and the conclusion, then we can actually prescribe things for the business. So here then we can start tweaking things like like tweaking the, in this case there was like not a bonus but a coupon or something rather, right? Groupon. And we can tweak things, so modify the inputs to maximize our outputs, and then we can list all sorts of recommendations on what we understand, not outside of the scope of what we understand. So here we don't mention things like marketing and so forth, right? Okay, all right. So let's begin in a second. What I'll do is, first off, we'll just clean up this spreadsheet and then away we go. So here I am with my spreadsheet open, the one that we're supposed to be doing our analytics on. And first off, what I'm going to do is just really quickly, it's a good idea for you to just organise and get to know your data before you actually start analysing it. So first off, I'll just do the standard old things that I like to do is just clean it up a little bit, get rid of this bright yellow retina burning items, and give it a little bit less of a mellow colour. But before I get there, what I'd like to do is, I should have probably not done that until later on, but just to explain to you, if I click around in these cells here, you notice up here that it's all just in the formula bar, it's all just pure data. So it's data which is data entry, available for people to modify with just pure text or just numbers, right? No formulas. Then when I get further over, you can see here I've got a VLOOKUP in here, another VLOOKUP. Is formulas, right? So what we like to do is, if you've already done the exercise from previous HCI, is just to make these spreadsheets a little bit easier to work with and quicker for you. It's so easier for your brain to sort of pick up what areas you can modify and what you can't. It's it's a good idea, just highlight the bits that you reckon users should be able to enter data into, and actually just change it to a different color, like grey. So the grey actually says that you can enter data in here, and leave formulas as a as a white to just say yes, we've actually got some formulas in here. Please don't touch. So grey enables people to modify data, and white means formulas please don't touch. Right. So I'm just going to redo this heading here again, so it's a slightly better colour. Yeah, there we go. So a little bit easier on the eye. Now, if someone comes to my spreadsheet here, they know the grey. They can modify it with the text, and these guys have got formulas. Here, I'll go back and get rid of this tab colour to something which is red for my reference data, which means now that people actually see that the red tab means this area will be data referenced within other tabs or worksheets. So please don't be warned. Please don't stuff around with them too much. Here I'll change that yellow, retina burning yellow again. And here we've got pure data, but it's a table, so people can actually see, yeah, well, if you really want to modify, you should be able to modify any of this, so you should keep it consistent and leave it sort of greyish colour. Yeah, we're just going to make it grey. So grey is for modifying, for users to be able to modify this stuff that's used later on somewhere. Same as this guy. I'm just going to make those grey as well, so you can modify these values, and they'll the user entry squares, right? My data sheet here, which was all my reference data. I know it's a working sheet, so for me, I usually just change those to a green sort of colour, and then any consequent like new analysis sheets which will come up, I usually change those to a bluish sort of colour, right? Yeah, right. So now if I look at my spreadsheet, I know down the bottom here red means reference data, please beware. Green one is my working sheets, as in working with the data to put formulas and so forth in, and blue ones will be my analytics, right? So in here I'll probably have pivot charts and pivot tables and the whole work, right? The next bit that you should be aware of too is make sure that your data is actually clean, right? So if you have a look here, you notice there are empty squares, right? And it's a good idea sometimes just to do a Control F, right? And I'm going to type a space, because usually what they'll do is a lot of spreadsheets just have like blank space or something put in there, which can really screw things up. And I'll go look through the whole spreadsheet, and I'll say find all. Oh, sorry, go back, undo that. I want it to match the entire contents of the cell for the space that I put in, right? So none found, which is quite good, right? So if I go back to my cell, just to show you, I'll purposely put a space here, enter. And if I do what I just did a second ago, and see I've got a space here, and I'm looking for the space in an entire cell all the way through the workbook, just for instance, and I do find all, it actually will find this cell here, right? So I could go directly to that cell and get rid of just the space, right? So it won't be causing me any havocs through the spreadsheet. But just to have a look through the data is a good idea. And here we've got discount voucher, and ideally this discount, instead of having like Groupon typed in there, should have been the same as this cell, these cells here, which has got the drop down list box, right? And it doesn't seem to be. So there we go, we found a problem already, right? So where is this data coming from. Let's have a really quick look. Data validation, and obviously reference is missing, right? So immediately we know there's an error in this spreadsheet already. Let's clean it up. So let's go to reference. So it's product data. If I do reference, and you can see here, they're the products. So this would have been the reference that should have been used in the drop-down list box. And I'm just going to give it a name. My products, right? Enter, right? And now I can actually go back to my spreadsheet here, and what I can actually do is, because I want people to enter data all the way right through, so I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to say for all the cells in this column, forever and ever and ever, I want data validation. Yep, data validation will equal my products, right? My products. So yes, let's just test it now. It should be working, so people can actually check and change the data. Now obviously the very first cell here, because I didn't want to do one by one and highlight the whole column, so this one here will reset it back so it's not a drop down list box. We've got data validation, and here I'll just say any value, right? So now it's nice and clean. So here we go, I've got a drop down list box. I've got grey areas all the way through here to actually say that it's data entry, and these group on values, right, should also be a drop down list box, right? But let's have a look down the data, and lo and behold, we've actually got this thing called scoop on, right? So is there any other type of value here that we can see through our data? It's all group on. We've only got a few, which is scoop on. Maybe that's an error, right? But we won't touch it. We won't change it. But just to be sure, yes, it's all group on. I'll do Control Home to get to the top, and I'm actually going to copy that cell, go to my reference, and I'm going to create my own list here for the group on and so forth options, right? So I'm going to say here, paste the values, and I know the other one was called scoop on, right? So scoop on, I'll copy that, go to my reference, and I'm going to put here, paste the value, right? So I know these two will actually be my discount options, right? So I'll go discount options. I'm going to copy this format here, copy the format for the header, right? And I'm going to put a border around these guys, so let people know that that's an option, and put a border on this guy, and I know that this will be my list of discount, right? So my discounts, go enter. So now I can actually go back to my sales data. I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'll just highlight here, highlight the entire column, which means people can enter more, choose more afterwards. But for new entries, I'll do this, go data, and I want to see a list, and here I'll say equals my discounts, right? Okay, and now if I just check it, see, so I know that there won't be an error within my data, and obviously this shouldn't be a drop down list box, right? So we'll get rid of the drop down list box. I go data validation and any value, right? Now my sheet is actually quite workable, right? I know people are not going to make a mistake by putting in GRP on and all this sort of stuff. It's the data validation will make my my spreadsheet a little bit more usable and more accurate, right? Other things you could also do is build up a customer list maybe in another sheet later on. But the other things, you later on, if you get very proficient in Excel, you could also add here a calendar, so you don't have to type the value. You would double click and actually pick from a calendar control, right? Which is another little option for HCI, basically usability for your spreadsheet. So I'm just going to save this, and then we're ready to do some analysis, I suppose. So let's try it in the next. So let's do some analysis now. Just quickly going back to my review form, and we've covered what the contents of the review form should have in it. Now, what are we actually going to analyse, right? So if I go back to my spreadsheet, just a quick explanation of what all this data and so forth means, right? So if you remember your from the presentation, data continuum, data, information, knowledge, wisdom, and so forth. The the worksheet here has cells, all in the grey area here, has pure data, right? So pure data. So if which is basically meaningless on its own. So if I walked into the room and I said, oh, South Australia, next time I walk in and I say 8, or I say Groupon, or I say apple chips, it doesn't mean anything on its own. So any of these cells here in the grey area are called, well, basically a cell contains just pure data, right? So how do we make information out of this data? And the how do we get information from it is that each column heading actually gives you the context, right, or the metadata for the data. So in other words, each column actually provides you information. So the data in the cells here is given meaning by the heading. So it actually says customer Jeff Ong, right, which means something. If I just walked into the room and I said, oh, Ted or Keith Rad, right, Keith Rad, it doesn't mean anything unless I tell you, oh, the customer Keith Rad, right? That gives you information. So each one of these columns is information that we can do analytics on, right? So we can analyze all these columns. So the column headings actually gives us a means of saying, what are we going to analyze here? So what are you going to analyze? If I come through here, I can analyze any one of these specific items. So I can say I will be analysing a date range of some sort. I will be analysing customers. I will be analysing discount vouchers. I can analyse state, the number of cases or boxes purchased. I can analyse the product as well, right? So basically I can copy most of these headings into my introduction and say this is what I'll be analysing, right? Obviously you can take one extra step and say I will be analysing discount vouchers over states, right? So how did discount vouchers perform in the different states? Or I can even do things like I will be analysing product performance in states, or I can do product performance, total sales, right, of the products that were sold, or I can even do the total sales for each state, right? And then if I take one extra step past there, I can even do things like I will be looking at total sales of products over a date range, like monthly sales or quarterly sales or daily sales, whatever you really like, right? So those sort of sentences would have to appear in my introduction here. So for instance, what are we going to analyse, or what can you analyse? You could do something like this. So I will be analysing dates in it, and obviously here you would actually have to append more information about exactly what you will be analysing, right? But these items are what you are analysing first off, and then in your report you would expand it so it actually look like this sort of thing. Let's have a look here. If I just copy this, you can pause this and have a read of it afterwards, but you could do something like that and say I will be analysing total sales per state, or the quantity sales per state, the best and worst customer, how to discount perform per state. And then if you include dates, you can say we can actually do performance over a monthly, quarterly sort of analysis, or how did products do per month or quarter. So this would be what you are actually analysing, and that would actually then appear in your conclusion, along with here some kind of dollars and percentages, right? Okay. That's the answer in the conclusion, saying total sales per state was, right? So in the introduction, total sales is what I'll be looking at, and then in the conclusion you would say total sales per state was blah blah blah, and the percentages and so forth, whatever you came up with within your analysis part, right? Okay, I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain to you there. But let's have a look at this spreadsheet a little bit further. So let's do a little bit of analysis now, right? So our first point of call is to highlight all our data, because all our analysis will be done through pivot tables, right, and pivot charts. So I've highlighted my data, and I'm going to insert now, insert pivot table, and usually what you'll see is that we've been working with creating pivot tables in a new worksheet, but here, for instance, I've already got a worksheet which I created before, so I'm just going to say put it into an existing worksheet, and I'll sort of click over here and then click in a cell. I want my table here, insert. I'm going to change this this worksheet to show or reflect my first bit of an analysis, right? So here I'm going to say total sales per state, right? So I'm really looking at state performances for total sales. So let's have a look. Yeah, I'm just going to go here and I'll say states, and states means that we were looking for total sales. So I know it was for states, and total sales or charges in this case. And you notice already I've got the data's already calculated for me, and now we do a right click sort, right, largest to smallest. You can also do data sort, the same deal, right? At the moment I'm not showing dollars or anything, so in effect you would want to the easiest way for me is just highlight the data and just give it a dollar value, and we don't need these cents, right? So I'm just going to get rid of the cents, so it rounds things up for me, and I can already see that Victoria is the best performer. But it's nice to click in the white area, so I can just click in the white area and say insert, and I'm going to create just a simple chart, right? I'm going to make it smaller. We don't need such large charts, right? And there we go. So it's ready to be put into my a little bit of cleanup here. So here you would say, total up, state, right? Okay, and already know that Victoria here is at 29,000 and so forth, right? You can get rid of these legend areas. So if I want to, I can actually say, you know, get rid of the darn thing. So I'm just going to del, right, delete. Yeah. And if you need to, remember, you can also go into the chart development stuff as well, like designing chart areas, like playing around with axes and so forth later on, and trend lines and so forth. But not interested in that at the moment. So that's my first bit of analysis, to actually look at total charges. If I look at the next item, I said quantities. So remember this and sorry, I went too far. This analysis is just bare bones, right? You should do a little bit more detailed stuff for your business report. But quickest way to do anything is just copy this chart. Oh, sorry, the pivot table. And I'm just going to paste another one on here. I'm just going to paste it here. So now I've got basically two pivot tables, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I've clicked into the white area for this pivot table. I'm going to insert and just say give me a chart, line them up roughly. And this time here in this table where I've got total charges, right? And here, remember the old value field, so I can change the values field to count instead of right. So I can say there were 221 sales in Victoria, making a total of 21,000. Right. So sales. We'll do the same thing here. Click there and delete. Just del. Gets rid of the sheet. I really don't need it. Need to see. Really don't need to see the legend on these guys. Here on this particular chart here, I don't want to see the dollars, so I highlight my data, and the data I'm just going to make that just general, right? Sorry, here not general, right? The totals, and you can see now it's reflected, giving me quantities instead of dollars, right? Like in this particular chart here. So it's a bit of analysis which shows me the total sales and the quantity or number of sales, right? Just a very quick way of doing some state analysis. So let us try and do some more analysis in the next section. Let's look at products now. So instead of going to my data and saying insert chart and so forth, I'll just show you the different ways of doing it. Another way is to just make a copy of this sheet. So I'll go move copy, and I'll say create a copy, right? And I'll move my new worksheet to the end here, and I'm going to change this to products, right? So product analysis, and obviously now I've got two worksheets. They're the same. One's for states, right? State analysis. The other one's for product. So I'm going to change my sheets here, or I'm just going to highlight the whole column and say give me just default values to start off with, and I'll click in my first pivot table, and I'm going to get rid of state, and I'll want to see products, right? So there are my product sales, and I'll do the same thing down here. Get rid of state. I'm not interested in state in this sheet. I'm just going to do products, and now what I've got is total charges in terms of sales for products, and here the number of sales per products. Okay, and obviously we do the right click sort largest to smallest. Remember that for your business report. Sort this largest to smallest. You can change these to dollar values later on. I'll do them in a minute. But one thing you should see here now, that we can see total sales and so forth for products, same as here. But what if we actually wanted to see state information as well, like products within states. So what I'll do is I'll include states, right? So you have a look here, I'll put it up the top here, so my order is I want to see state and then products embedded. And you can see here now I've actually got a chart which shows me per state breakdown of who were the best sellers in each state, right? So I can see here that New South Wales sweet cider was the best, apple cider in South Australia, and dry cider in Victoria, right? So at the moment this chart looks a bit busy. Don't hand in something like that into your business report, but because it looks fairly busy is another way of actually formatting this so it makes a little bit more sense and it's easier to present in a report, right? And that would be to you could actually use state as a filter by column, right? So here, but the only issue here is now that you'd have to individually sort each column to actually get the totals that you wanted to see in a nice fashion, right? But here I can also do another thing, is actually filter by by states. So if you remember the previous example where I had all the states listed, it's nicely ordered for me. Now I'd have to literally pick individually and say, oh, what was the performance in New South Wales? So it gives me the chart, right? So easy way for your business report is to again do a copy, and I'll go down here and I'll just paste it, right? And I can do comparisons, like if I click in here and do insert chart and reformat it again. I hope you get the idea here. I'm just going to delete this guy, right? I hope you get the idea here. So I can actually do a comparison between Victoria and New South Wales, which I've got already. So New South Wales, and I can see the performance straight away is dry cider. Dry cider in New South Wales did not perform that well. So there's a comparison between all those products. But notice the performance of Victoria is overall much better than any other state. So these would be a good way of putting these into your business report. So obviously change the titles, right? State product sales, and this one here you would actually say Victoria. I'm not going to do it here at the moment, but this is number of sales, right? And obviously you change these. I'm not going to do it in this session, but you would give it appropriate titles and so forth, and then you'd make a copy of this and paste it in your Word document, right? So the chart would be reflect what we wanted in the business report. Remember, try to organise and so they're largest to smallest as well, right? So there is another way of doing comparisons within your business report, right? Now, the last bit that I wanted to show you was remember that we've got a date field here as well. So how about we have a look at, and I'm just going to quickly do the same thing, copy this sheet. I'm just going to say, I don't know, monthly sales, right? Move my sheet over, right? And monthly sales, obviously I'm going to click into this sheet here, and I'm just going to get rid of states and say give me dates. Why is it overlapping? It shouldn't be overlapping. It doesn't like me putting in. Maybe it's this guy. Get rid of this. Right. Okay. Get rid of this guy. Just will not accept it. Not sure why. Alright, let's just get rid of him. quick and dirty, right? So I'm not wasting everybody's time. Delete these columns, right? So I've got sales, which are per month here, right? This is doing a count. Obviously, you want to do that as a sum. So go back here, do sum. All right. So it's sum of sales. You notice it's nicely organised for me in monthly already. Not sure why, but and you change the title here as well. Monthly sales. Monthly sales. Right. And the point being on this particular option is that what you must remember is the right click group by option, right? So we can say group by and then pick here, not day but month. So monthly, obviously because I had day and month. So if I go back to my grouping and I included days as well, that's why it did a subgrouping for me. But we don't want to see that, so I can do by month, right? You notice the other options too here, grouping. You could do quarterly, right, as well. So now I can actually see that my performance over time was such, right? Now, what can we do with time-based analysis, right? So we can here include, if I include here, I can add trend lines, right? Or I could go into the design view and add trend lines, right? So I can actually add in a linear trend line, which you can see they're already populating for me, and you can see the different types available for you for the different types of moving averages and so forth, right? So let's just put in a linear, and I'll say what I'd like to do is get that trend line here and format the trend line. So format the trend line, it's linear, but what I like to do is I actually like to predict for 3 periods in the future, right? So if I close this now, you can see that what I would actually see is that January, February, March, there's an expectancy to actually go up to about 7,000 and so forth for this particular trend, okay, for the yearly. So that was just a quick example of using trend lines, right? So I can trend line, or I can in here click on the blue bars, which is your data set, right? The data set, and you can add trend lines, right? Right. Right. So we did the right click for grouping for dates and so forth, right? And we added trend lines for future, which is your predictive analytics. Right? So hopefully you got something out of some analysis there, right? The one other thing that I'd really like to say, this is very basic data, so our analysis in here was actually looking at fairly sort of like simple items for analysis. But remember, in some organisations they would include much more detail in here, things like delivery costs, fuel costs, drivers. If we actually look at the products here, they're all perishable, right? So we would start looking at things like refrigeration costs for delivery and so forth. So it would have been really good to have data here to actually say, is it really effective for us to operate in all of these states? Maybe if we go back here, if I actually had a look, Queensland was actually very, very poor in poor in performance. There's only really like 3 sales, and if I went to the product analysis and I picked, let's say just down here, I just pick Queensland for instance, you can see Queensland, we're only selling 2 products and so forth. Is it really worth our trouble? Right? So it could become a recommendation saying if we drop this this product, we would have X amount of revenue or charges that we could work with in some other fashion, right? So, and it'd be good here to actually say how much is this as a percentage of overall sales and so forth. And remember, percentages were here. You could actually just say show as. You can pick percentages of grand totals and so forth. So if I just did grand totals, or obviously down here as well, if you change the values, you can do show values as, so you can pick the different types of notification that you want to show for that particular value. So hopefully that's sort of shown you a bit of detail about what you can do with your data. Mainly make sure that your reference and all this is cleaned up, so your spreadsheet, you're familiar with your spreadsheet, everything's nicely formatted for you, so you're comfortable with it, and then away you go with the pivot tables. You start analysing, creating charts, and you should see, you should be able to describe current performance. Then you should be able to do predictions or predictive forecasting with trend lines, or see patterns, right? So patterns in your data, and then obviously later then you would actually start doing the recommendations, like we recommend doing this because it's X amount of sales that we could make or lose and so forth, right? So they're the three main parts within your business report. The predictions here would be the very last part of saying X amount of dollars and X amount of percentage can be made, lost, and so forth, right? So recommendations here. Yeah, don't lose money, right? Okay, all right. All right, I have my business report, or a template of, and this is the final exercise for this workshop, is to format this document in the form of a report, the same as what you would hand in for your business report. So we know business report has to have the cover page, or basically title page, introduction, the contents of your analysis, which would be headings with subheadings, and then a conclusion, and finally we want to see recommendations. And for your business report, don't put any appendix in, right? You're not needed. So what we're going to do here is we're going to format this document, which you can download from the website. I'm not going to read the contents and so forth, really not interested, apart from just to make sure, do not copy this format, all this sort of stuff, this sort of text, for thinking that it's a template for your business report. It's not, right? If you have a look right through it, not $1 value mentioned anywhere, no percentages, even recommendations over here in the wrong format. It should be in bullet point. I'm not reading the context, but if you're going to recommend something, I would want to see recommendation followed by, or how much money are we going to make, or excuse me, what sort of percentages we're going to be making. Better income from last year, we're going to have 25% increase in revenue, blah 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 blah, right? If you look at the introduction here, it starts going into, for the example for the workshop, it was Marita Loans doing something, and here we're going into blurb about the business, right? If this report was going to the business owner already knows that he wants to expand the business. They already know that it's been established for a few years, and they already know that staff members are lacking skills on it. So it's not needed to tell the business owner that this paragraph is completely useless in a way, right? And over here, we start talking about the purpose of the report, right? So in other words, your purpose will be to look at what are the factors that you're analysing, and you should specify them immediately, right? Okay. All right. By the way, another thing, just to be really sure, is, or to make it evident to you, please don't use this in your report, right? This program, it doesn't make sense, right? So a programmed instruction method, or also please don't start your sentences with this, right? Okay. All right. This, which, that, at. All right, so we have some text here, and hopefully from your from what you've just learned about the review form, what you'll be doing is basically cut and paste into a Word document that you'll set up ready for your business report. is it'll be in raw format like this, not thinking about headings, page breaks, and so forth. So just put your notes into a particular, like a blank Word document, and leave your formatting right up until the end, because just to give you a little bit of a helping hand, is if you have a report like this and you continually change the formatting, it'll take you 3-4 times longer to write the darn thing. So you're better off leaving all your formatting right up until the end and just put pure text in your notes in here, even if you just paste the charts in as you go along. But don't forget, do the formatting right at the end. There's absolutely no point wasting time reformat, right? So a little bit of helpful advice. You see this document here is at a word count of 903 words down the bottom here. So just expect that your business report will be roughly the same in size. So it's really like two pages in a way of text. So it's not a very complex report that you have to hand in. The only thing I'd have to say is that because it's so short, it's actually extremely difficult, because you have to be concise and you have to be able to crunch what you want to say into such a small amount of words, right? So it is quite difficult for you to do. So, all right, let's begin by starting to format. I know you're going to be doing, fast forward, back forward, and all that sort of stuff, because I'm going to skip through this fairly quickly. So what I want to do is, first off, I want to put in a title page, right? So in here, I could put a few enters, right? Always like to leave a few enters at the or line spaces at the start of a document, because it gives you ability to play with what's in the content. Now, what I'd suggest to you, this is what you don't do, right? You do not go to insert pages cover page. In this exercise, because we're going to be doing page numbers, section breaks, and so forth, I've found that a lot of students in the past semesters over the years have been inserting a cover page, and then had massive problems with page numbering and so forth, right? So forget about these U-Butte little things that they give you for free. What we're going to do is we're going to insert a blank page, but also don't do an insert blank page from here. Do it in the standard fashion, which I'll show you at the moment, right? What we want to do is we want to insert by going to layout, page break, right? But don't do page break, which means give me a new page, like put a break in between pages, the standard page break, because you'll see in a second, a page break on its own will actually not give me the ability to change headers and footers between the different pages. It just it basically just mimics the same header and footer all the way through. So what we really are after, to actually put in a break for a new page, is to put in a section break to next page. So section breaks allow us to play around with the different headers and so forth, which I'll explain now. So I'm going to insert a section break. Now what I've got is my old page here, but I've actually introduced a new page at the top here as well, right? So I know this first page will be my title page. So I'm just going to type it here, title page. Okay, my title page. And I'm going to hit an enter, right? And obviously on the title page, remember you have to have your student name, student name, and here's student number, and I'm going to say it's this 341, so whatever number, right? And I'll say here created, updated, and you guys have to put in a tut, what day, time, and tutors, right. And whoever it is, slash whoever it is. Okay. Now my title page is supposed to have an explanation of what this report actually is. Reader learns, I don't know, project suggestions. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, good old squiggly lines, right? And the course is information systems, right? Okay. Now I know that this guy will be my title, so I'm going to use title format, and I'm going to center it right there. And I know this guy here, you notice how I've actually no right clicks, it's just if I move my cursor across the page, you'll notice it'll flick over. That means I can now select the line or double click to select a paragraph. In this case it's a line, so it's just single click, and single click I'm going to make that more emphasized, so it's subtitle, and I'm going to center it. So simple as that. Now these guys here, I want them at the bottom of the page, so we go down the bottom, right, and I'm going to highlight all of these guys, and I'm going to shift them over. Where's my ruler? View ruler, right? And I'm going to shift these guys over. Why I needed the ruler is because I can get my indentations here, so I'm just going to move them across to here. And obviously I don't want the big line spacing between everything, so I'm just going to go back to home, and I'm going to say, oh, what sort of line spacing? 1, and I don't want all those gaps at the end, which means these gaps between. So I'm going to go into the detail paragraph settings, and I'm going to say after is single, after 0, right, single line spacing. Yep, it's actually just given me line feed, so I actually have to go on. I'm not sure why it gave me line spaces. Anyway, you understand how to format the paragraph. So I'm actually going to go into the format paragraph, and I'll say afterwards, just give me 6, or no, let's make it 3. 3. Okay. Alright, now that I'm happy with that, let's have a look up here. The only thing sort of missing is to space it out a little bit, right? And insert an image into here, right? So let me just have a look here where I've got an image here, right? And all I'm going to do is just drag and drop it. There we go. Good. And I don't even have to format it. I can click on this guy, say please center it. All right, done. That's all centered. So my cover page now is complete. And notice cover page does not have a header or a footer in here. But what we want to do is specify a difference in this page compared to all the other pages, right? Actually, I just noticed something. Let's get that up here, right? And let's just move this up a little bit more. There we go, right? Okay, so I can save that, and I want to make the first page different to all the other pages. Reason is because I want to keep this guy as a cover page or a title page. So what I'm going to do is I'll go into page layouts, and I'm going to pick this guy here which says the page setup. Click on that, and the layout I'm going to say different first page, right? So different first page. So okay, you notice here too you've got margins and so, because these margins are huge. Usually what I would do is do a 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way right through. It makes it a bit cleaner. Like this is quite closed in. Bit of wasted space, but anyway, so we've created first page is a different first page. Now what I want to do is also include, because that's the cover page, remember there's supposed to be a page here for the table of contents. So I'm going to, that's the very last line, I'm just going to go one further down and do the same as we did before. We're going to go to layouts and we're going to insert a section break to the next page, which means it'll give me a blank page between the two cover page and the rest of my report. Do not use this break page. Okay, next page. So now I have a nice clean page here which I can click into, and I'm just going to just say contents just for the moment, right? And I'm going to be inserting a table of contents into this page a little bit later on. Okay, so let me save here. Save. Okay. Now let's explain headers and footers. If I double click in the top region or double click in the bottom region of a page, I'll let you get into edit mode for header and footer. So I'll do double click here, and you notice I've got header first page section 1, right? So if I go down here, I can go footer section 1, and you notice on the next page it says header section 2, and that was because we were using this layout, we were doing section breaks rather than page breaks. If you don't see section 1, section 2 in yours, you've actually used page breaks, which will cause problems where you can't assign different types of headers and footers within the regions. Right? Now, if I go into into my into here, where are we again? Not references, reviews, insert here, design, where are we? Here, page breaks, headers and footers. I've got different types of options here set which I can do things with headers and footers, right? So I'm going to say edit headers and footers, and in the edit headers and footers, you notice there is a next and previous where I can go to the next header, so I can flick through, or I can go to the footer on a page and then flick through different pages. But you notice here on the very first page, the cover page, there is no link to previous. The link to previous means does it copy the contents of the previous header or the footer to this section, right? So if I go to the next page, which is my footer for the table of contents, you see your table of contents, what I have to do is I have to unlink here so it's not the same as the previous, right? So if I do unlink, you notice the same as previous has disappeared, which means now I'm actually going to create a new footer for this page which will continue to the next sections until I break the section information the same as I did before by clicking unclicking the same as previous, right? So in the table of contents, we want to include a footer which is different to the first page, and then if I go to the next footer, I want the footer for the rest of my document not to be the same as the one with the table of contents, because I will be using Roman numerals in my table of contents and standard old digits for the rest of the document. So here I would say unlink, so get rid of it. So it is not the same as my table of contents. This footer will be different, right, to the table of contents. And the last bit is that don't forget that the the header, I'm going to click in header here. The header here in table of contents should be blank, and the header in the next section for the rest of my document, I do not want to be blank, which is same as the previous. I want to actually put text in here, so I will unlink from the previous document, right? From the previous page. So now I can put in no header here. I can put my own header here, which is Roman numerals, and footer, and header here will continue all the way through the document. And I'm going to do it here. I'll just say my motion report. Right. And I'm going to change this. Sorry, yeah, the old red squiggly again. So I'll just go like this, and I'm going to change the format here. I'm gonna change the. Let's do that, right? So now, if I go to the next header, it should have replicated. There it goes, right? Okay, and the next page, it'll replicate because of the fact that it's the same as the previous section. We haven't unlinked. Okay, so now the footer for my table of contents. What I want to do is I want to place my page number not in the middle, but I want to place it at the end over here to say page I, right? So it'll just give me the Roman numeral, or alternatively I can just put it in the middle. But have a look at these breaks here, the tab stops. There's a tab stop in the center, and there's a tab stop to the right, right? So if I hit tab, the tab key, the cursor will jump to the tab stop. So watch this. We'll go tab, and now my cursor is in the middle of the page, and I can do tab again, tab, and it goes to the right tab stop. Now here I want Roman numerals. So what I would like to do is I'm just going to insert, insert, and I'm going to put in symbols, which is the standard old. Where are they? Oh, you can never find them when I really want to. Here, page number. What am I doing? Okay, so over here, the page number. So I've clicked my cursor in the spot that I want my page number in. Now, don't use these options here, right? Saying top, bottom, page, and all that sort of stuff. Just keep it simple in your report by saying current position, plain number. So I'm just going to click on plain number. So there I've just inserted the page number for my first page. Right? Now if I go to the next page, remember next page we've already broken the link. Right? So if I go to next page down here, I can actually click into the footer. Yep, where are we? It's gone out of whack. Hang on, out of whack. So I'll double click in here, I'll go to the next footer, right? So my next footer here, I want the footer to actually be the page number as well, but it's not linked, right? So I'm going to go tab to go in the middle, and tab again, and the same deal, I'm going to be inserting page number, current position, plain old number, right? So there's my page. Right, you can obviously at the start of it here I can actually say page, sorry, it's all going off here, page, so I can actually put the letters in if I really want to. Not sure why you'd want to, but page. Now what we want is in the table of contents to be Roman numeral. So if I go to the actual number and I right click on the number, I can do format page numbers. Format page number, what sort of format? I want Roman numerals, and I want it to start with 1, right? So go OK. Now you see my page is I, right? Okay. I'm going to save this just so if I do lose something. Now if I go to the next page, I don't want page I, want page 1, which is actually done. Now if I go further on, page 2, and so forth, it'll just keep incrementing from there on. Now I don't want to start at page 1 because this is actually my page 2, right? Or second page, right? Oh, sorry, I do want to start page 1, but if you wanted to start at page 2, right? So I could do a right click on the number here, format, and I could say start at page 2. But in your report, just leave it as page 1. It doesn't really matter because it should be it should actually be page 1 of your contents, right? Not page 2. Right. So let me undo that. Control Z. Has it undone everything I've done so far? Right. It's a bit. No, good old Word sometimes really plays funny things with you. So I'm going to save here. And that was page numbering and section breaks. Now you noticed how I was breaking the sections so I could have different formatting for the different areas within my document. Right? All right, next bit. The last part of the exercise is to actually just do the formatting of text, which implies doing the headings. So if I go over to here and I click on that, that's a heading, right? Another heading. This guy here will most likely be a subheading. If I want to pick a line within a paragraph, I click once. If I do double click, I actually pick the whole paragraph, which we'll do in a second. But let's do the main headings first, because what we want to do is automatically generate a table of contents. So I'm just going to pick this heading here, go click once. Now if I do control key click line, it'll pick the next heading, and I'm going to miss this heading and this heading because they're subheadings of the main heading of the current situation. So I'm going to keep going down a little bit further down. Obviously this report's been split, so there's a lot of other sub-research items. Now if I do control click here, it's a main heading and another main heading. And because they're main headings, now what I'm going to do is actually set them as a heading 1 type. I'm not going to change any of the formats and so forth, or I really don't need to at the moment, but you can see that main heading types have been picked to include in the table of contents. So now if I go to my table of contents area here, I'll just delete this. I can insert, sorry, not insert, but do references. And references implies that I can now insert a table of contents. Okay? So for your business report, try not to modify the table of contents. Just pick the very first one, and that's, put it this way, it's much easier for the people who are marking it because they know that it's a common format. If you modify your table of contents, you'll lose marks, right? So just click on this guy, and you notice it's picked all the headings which I picked as heading 1, and it's given the appropriate page number. So I'll go further down because what we want to do is actually include the subheadings. So I'm going to click on the subheadings, 1, control click on this guy, control click on this. Oh, no. So what I've shown you is that you can make a mistake because you can't uncontrol. So what you should do is be very careful if you do a control click, because if you've got a lot of headings, you'll actually miss a lot of information. So go click there, click there, and be very accurate with your choices. Alright, and I'm going to do this guy, and that's the subheadings that are headings within this heading 1, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to assign them as a heading 2, right? And the heading 2s now have been formatted, which means I can now go up to my table of contents and this is the thing that you should remember for your business report, is when I click on this guy, you can do update table, but you can also do right click update field and do entire table. So it's not just page numbers, but actually picks out the new heading choices. So I'm going to click in here and say OK. And you notice now it's included not only the first heading level types, but the subheadings as well, and it's given me the appropriate numbers. Now, what to learn from this is that if you're doing formatting of your report, and I advise you to do it right at the end of the report. If you haven't, make sure that the very, very last thing that you do in your report is to actually go to your table of contents. So if I've been writing my report for the last few days and I haven't updated the table of contents, this will not reflect what you've actually modified. If you've increased page numbers and so forth, it'll be incorrect. So the very last thing you do in your business report is right click on this guy and make sure that you update your entire table as the very last thing you do within your business report. Alright, so that was including the heading types. Now I'm going to save. Now, the business report requirements, if I double click on this guy here for the paragraph, I can actually change the line spacing and the types that, or the justification. And what you'll find is justification up here is whether I align everything to the left, whether I center all my text, put it all to the right, or justify. And in the report, the business report, we actually ask you to justify. So justify all your text. And if you have a look at the text in the highlighted area, which I've just highlighted, when I hit justify, it'll make sure that everything is aligned with the margins, the leftmost and the rightmost margins. So there are other ways of doing it, but I recommend that you actually go through and actually justify all of your normal text, or you could go to normal text, right click, modify the stuff, and in modification then you actually pick what type of lines whether you can actually justify or not the text. So here you would say paragraph, and you would say not left justify but justify, right? So all of my text automatically reflects. So either way, you can do what I did at the start, where you just highlight a paragraph, or you can modify the normal text through the formatting to actually say whether you are justifying everything or not, right? And that concludes the formatting of the report, right? And remember, the very last thing you do is you update field, make sure it's done entirely, and my report is now complete. And oops, I nearly forgot. Yep, it's not actually complete, right? So there's our business report. But remember, in your business report, the requirement is for the recommendations to be bullet pointed, right? So let's have a look here with the paragraph. Okay, here are the recommendations, and they've supplied 2 of them. I'll just highlight them. And the easiest way to go about that is you just pick the bullet point from the home menu. You get bullet point, there we go. And don't forget, in your business report you have to specify, right, dollars, blah 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 blah, why, and also, like, you know, percentages, growth expected, etc etc etc, yeah, right? So not just wording, but make sure that you actually include some kind of dollars and so forth, so people can understand what you're actually talking about as an investment or return on investment, right? And finally, you notice the report here is just purely words. We really need to have some kind of evidence of what you're saying. So if here we've got some kind of blurb saying blah 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 blah, and it's missing here dollars, all this should be filled in with dollars and percentages of how training affects the business. And then what you do is you include proof or evidence of what you're actually talking about with a chart, right? So blah, 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 right? I'm talking, dollars here, dollars there, and here's my proof, right? So you would just paste your evidence, and you center it, obviously, with a caption. So in here, I would actually say here, reference caption, insert caption, and I'm going to call it my evidence. Oh, cool. Right, to prove what I'm talking about, and you highlight this guy, you go back and you center it. So there's my chart. So this is my evidence of what I'm talking about. Okay, so don't put the chart in before the text, put it in after the text, and we'll be right. So now I've actually completed my report, right? So make sure that you put your charts within your text, and make sure you use your charts as evidence for what you have said in the text. Right. Okay. All the best, guys. Cheers.